AFR Talk. Encourage you to use that email address. We're activating that again. We're going to monitor that during the broadcast. Focal point at afr.net, focal point at afr.net. We will, as I say again, monitor that during the broadcast. Now, President Obama mentioned in his speech, he mentioned Seneca Falls, Selma, which is obviously the civil rights, and that's another place where Obama just lied through his teeth. I mean, there's no other way to put it, ladies and gentlemen. He said he was born because of the march at Selma and because of some kind of airlift that took place in connection with the Civil Rights March. Well, he was born in 1961, and his father didn't get here on some kind of airlift that was sponsored by anybody. So he was trying to grab a piece of the lightning in a bottle that was Selma, get himself identified with the march to Selma, the march across the bridge and all that. It had nothing to do with it. It had no connection with it whatsoever. Now, Seneca Falls that he mentioned in the speech, Seneca Falls go back to the first kind of women's rights conference back in 1848. Then he goes to Selma, 1965, and then to Stonewall, 1969. And he refers to our forebears in that segment. He said that this notion that we're all created equal, and don't forget, men are created equal, lifestyles are not. I repeat, men are created equal, lifestyles are not. Men are created equal, but the lifestyle is a matter of choice. It is a matter of moral choice, and not every moral choice is equal to every other choice. Not every sexual choice is equal to every other sexual choice. And this is the fog of language that President Obama is trying to use, trying to get us to believe that if you believe that all men are created equal, then you must affirm every choice that they make. That's simply hogwash. There's nothing to that. I mean, Adolf Hitler was created equal with you and me. Does that mean I affirm the moral choices you made? Absolutely not. He's a free moral agent. He's accountable to God for the choices he makes. So men are created equal, but choices are not. Choices are different. Choices must be evaluated. Choices must be assessed. Choices must be measured against a moral standard, just as Martin Luther King Jr. said, look, if a moral law is a man-made code that squares with the moral law or the law of God, a law that affirms, promotes, sanctions, endorses, subsidizes homosexual behavior, is not a just law because it does not square with either the moral law or the law of God. But so as far as President Obama is concerned, I mean, it's as if American history did not begin until 1848 with the Seneca Falls Conference. And then there's this huge gap in American history till 1965, and that's when the modern American history began. That's how truncated and twisted and distorted and tunnel-visioned his view of American history is. But he says Stonewall was one of the great moments in American history. Now, I was starting to tell you about what happened at Stonewall. These were riots. Here is some details from the piece that appeared first in Socialism Today. This is a magazine devoted to socialism. And this magazine devoted to socialism says the Stonewall riots, one of the peak moments in American history. 7 plainclothes detectives and a uniformed officer entered this gay bar called the Stonewall Bar and announced their presence. But at a certain point, the usual suspects departed from the script and decided to fight back. A debate still rages over which incident sparked the riot. Was it a butch lesbian dressed in man's clothes who resisted arrest? Or a male drag queen who stopped in the doorway between officers and posed defiantly, rallying the crowd? Riot veteran and gay rights activist Craig Rodwell says there was just a flash of group of mass anger. So this was a flash, an explosion of group and mass anger. The crowd of ejected customers started to throw coins at the officers. in mockery of the notorious system of payoffs, earlier dubbed gayola, in which police chiefs leached huge sums from establishments used by gay people and used public morals raids to regulate their racket. Soon, coins were followed by bottles, rocks, and other items. Cheers rang out as the prisoners in the van were liberated. Detective Inspector Pine later recalled, "I had been in combat situations, but there was never any time that I felt more scared than then." Pine ordered his subordinates to retreat into the empty bar, which they proceeded to trash, as well as savagely beating a heterosexual folk singer who had the misfortune to pass the doorway at that moment. At the end of the evening, a teenager had lost 2 fingers from having his hand slammed in a door. People in the crowd started shouting "gay power," and as word spread through Greenwich Village and across the city, hundreds of gay men and lesbians, black, white, Hispanic, predominantly working class, converged on the Christopher Street area around the Stonewall Inn to join the fray. The police were now reinforced by the Tactical Police Force, a crack riot control squad that had been specially trained to disperse people protesting against the Vietnam War. The pattern repeated itself several times. The TPF would disperse the jeering mob only to have it reform behind them. They'd just go around the block and come in behind the police, yelling taunts, tossing bottles and bricks, setting fires in trash cans. It sounds like something the Palestinians do to the Israelis. When the police whirled around to reverse direction at one point, they found themselves face to face with their worst nightmare, a chorus line of mocking queens, their arms clasped around each other, kicking their heels in the air, Rockette style, and singing at the tops of their sardonic voices, "We are the Stonewall Girls. We wear our hair in curls." And then the rest of it I can't even repeat because this is family radio. The following evening, the demonstrators returned. The numbers swelled to thousands. The protests and disturbances continued with varying intensity for 5 days. So as far as Barack Obama is concerned, that is the modern equivalent of the Boston Tea Party. Well, let's play a couple of other excerpts. Let's go back to clip A2, Jeff, the soundbite there, where he reaffirms that under his administration, they are going to go all out for environmental wackoism.
We will respond to the threat of climate change, knowing that the failure to do so would betray our children and future generations. Some may still deny the overwhelming judgment of science, but none can avoid the devastating impact of raging fires and crippling drought and more powerful storms. The path towards sustainable energy sources will be long and sometimes difficult. But America cannot resist this transition. We must lead it. We cannot cede to other nations the technology that will power new jobs and new industries. We must claim its promise. That's how we will maintain our economic vitality and our national treasure, our forests and waterways, our croplands and snow-capped peaks. That is how we will preserve our planet, commanded to our care by God.
So he invokes God. He invokes God about 5 times in this speech, so maybe making up for some lost time. And notice that his emphasis here is preserving the planet. Well, we're responsible, according to scriptures, to care for the planet, but we're also instructed to develop its resources. There's nothing in, that's what we're commanded to do, to work the earth, to serve it, to harness its resources for human use. God put those resources in the earth for us to extract and convert to human use. That's what they're there for. And God has commanded us to do that. He's given us authority over all the earth. That's completely absent from President Obama's inauguration speech, as if the only thing that God has commanded us to do is to preserve the earth. And if you preserve something, you don't develop it. You don't tamper with it. You don't mine it. You don't extract it. You don't drill it. That's not preserving it. So all of those things then become sins against the environmental God of Gaia. And President Obama here refers to the overwhelming judgment of science as if there is no question scientifically now that man is causing global warming. But there has been no global warming in 16 years, none. Even the meteorological office in London, the Met, they're finally admitting it. Der Spiegel today, the German Bible of journalism, they came out today and said, man, there's been no global warming in 16 years, and it's a mystery to us. We don't know why. We know that CO2 is going through the roof because of industrial output, and yet global temperatures are flatlined. They haven't gone up in 16 years. What the problem is, to quote Martin Lawrence, they have no idea what's going on. So this idea that there's an overwhelming judgment of science is just completely bogus. It's as if President Obama is unaware of that statement in a university in Oregon where 31,000 scientists, 9,000 of them PhDs, have signed a statement raising severe questions about the human causation of global warming. One last clip, A4. Jeff, let's grab that one on voter ID and immigration.
Our journey is not complete until no citizen is forced to wait for hours to exercise the right to vote. Our journey is not complete until we find a better way to welcome the striving, hopeful immigrants who still see America as a land of opportunity, until bright young students and engineers are enlisted in our workforce rather than expelled from our country.
Now, actually, President Obama has got a good point on that last one about bright young students and engineers. And I believe that our immigration policy ought to be oriented toward making sure that we help these people immigrate to the United States if they want, because they add something, they contribute something. But right now, only 6% of our immigrants are given their green card or whatever it is they're given based on their work ability, based on their specialty, based on what they are going to add, 6%. And that's all that President Obama mentions here. And I'm with him on that. I think we ought to expand those numbers. If somebody can contribute something, we ought to bring them in. But that's not the immigration problem. It's people that are low skill, low educated, and when they come to America, they come to extract. They don't come to contribute. They come to take. And that's the immigration problem that we have. So this is basically an appeal on the part of President Obama for amnesty. Marco Rubio sounding much like this. We'll talk about that afterwards. Focal Point AFR Talk.